You're watching Unpackaged Goods. I'm your host, Jonathan Dieter. We're back. There was a lot going on this week, so let's get into it. This is Unpackaged Goods, where we unpackage all of the headlines from CPG, consumer, health and wellness, all the trends you saw across media. So let's just dive into it. David Protein got hit with a class action lawsuit, claiming 83% more calories than labeled. Coefficient Capital, they raised a huge fund, $530 million. PepsiCo launched into the meat stick space, and George Clooney is back with a non-alcoholic beer. And Hims and Hers, they went from GLP-1 risk to GLP-1 distributor in 14 days. So welcome to Unpackaged Goods, where the firepower just got very real. So we're back. It's good to be back yapping, just finding time for it. You know, I've been prioritizing a lot of the AI things that I've been working on. So if this is new to you, I'm going to be rolling out basically an AI concierge model to people. Basically, I've been working with founders to look at their businesses very strategically, to show them some of the tools that I've already built for investment funds who are utilizing them today. And to say, hey, can we figure out tracking your inventory? Can we figure out tracking your COGS by SKU? Can we figure out how to better make all of your systems talk to one another? So that's some of the work that I've been doing. I've been speaking to a ton of founders the last couple of weeks, which has been really valuable. I've learned a ton about different workflows. And by now, I still haven't learned that I can't use my hands when I'm talking. And I talk with my hands, but then my camera goes crazy. So yeah, the AI conversations have been really valuable. If you're a founder listening to this and AI intrigues you, and if you're thinking about implementing it in your business, I'd love to have a conversation to talk to you about how I can work with you. Really save you time. A lot of people just don't have the time to look at these things. And so I need to turn off the email notifications for this. That's going to drive me nuts. So time, resources, I've just been spending a lot of time head first into this stuff. And so, yeah, I'd love to explore working with you. Alrighty, so the David Protein lawsuit. So we touched on this briefly. We're going to go through all the facts, give you what happened, what's going on, and tell you what I think. So this story really took over the internet last week. I even had my sister and her friends texting me and be like, have you heard about David? And to be honest, at first I thought she was talking about ice cream and that they're launching a protein-packed ice cream. And then I saw the news about the lawsuits, and they just got eviscerated online. People just came at their throats saying see, we told you, thought it was the internet's gotcha moment for David. And very quickly, people who were pointing a finger and laughing at David, they were stand corrected and by science. And so we're going to break down what that science was and go from there. So David Protein got hit with a class action lawsuit alleging that the bars contain up to 83% more calories and 400% more fat than what's on the label. The bars are marketed at 150 calories and 2 grams of fat. Independent lab tests found 268 to 275 calories and 11 to 13.5 grams of fat. Immediately, the internet compared it to Mean Girls, Regina George getting tricked into eating weight gain bars. Peter Rahul, the founder and CEO of David, he fired back pretty quickly with a letter of his own. No one's getting Regina George here. So let's go into really what this centers around. So what's interesting is dispute centers around EPG, esterified propoxylated glycerol, a modified plant-based fat substitute that's supposed to pass through the body without being digested. Rahul's argument, the lab used bomb calorimetry, which measures the total heat when food is burned. That method counts EPG as fully digestible calories, even though the body doesn't metabolize it that way. So the real question here isn't whether the lab found more calories, it's whether the testing method is appropriate for a product containing a fat substitute that the FDA permits different caloric calculations for. This is where the nuances live that social media totally missed. The FDA permits 6 different calorie calculations. Bomb calorimetry works for most foods, but not for ingredients like fiber, certain sweeteners, and fat substitutes like EPG. Rahul is saying the calorie count on the back of David bars reflects what the body actually absorbs, not what burns in a lab. Plaintiffs are saying the label violates FDA standards because the nutrient content exceeds declared value by more than 20%. Regardless of who wins the legal argument, the story has massive implications for the entire protein category as a whole. Consumer trust in nutrition labels is already fragile. The protein bar category has been built on macro marketing, protein calorie ratios, zero sugar claims, and low fat positioning. So when the hottest brand in the category faces questions about its core claim, it creates doubt across every competitor. This is the regulatory and trust risk that comes with building a brand too good to be true nutritional profiles. We could go back and forth on this for an entire hour on the science, the legal implications, the consumer trust angle, but the short version is it's not as simple as the internet made it look. Whether David's labeling holds up depends on the FDA's interpretation of CPG caloric values, not social media outrage. And I think this was an important story because I think even the food space is very political, and it is wild to see the people who were up in arms about David, who were up in arms about everything, quickly crawled back in their shells because they knew they were wrong. And I think that's a very important lesson with everything, is that it's very important to reserve judgment until all of the facts come out. And I think here we saw David just get crucified online, like gotcha moment. When the facts came out, they're in the right here. So I'm happy that there is a clean food movement going on. And I think the less that people politicize that and the more that people realize we're all saying the same thing, I think the better off we are. So that's all we're going to say on that. So yeah, that's the David breakdown. We've just been ripping and rolling. Oh, David. I like the David bars, to be honest. Like, they taste really good. You know, I know they've gotten some criticism about like the ingredients and what's in them, but and now how many calories and fats actually in them, but I like them. I forget which one I really like the best, but maybe I'm just gonna go like full pro David and get all their products. Maybe. Alrighty, so there's been a lot of fundraising going on in the last couple of weeks. I feel like every other week I'm writing about a new fund, reloading, and doubling down on the space. And I think that that's really an indicator of what the smart money and the big money thinks about CPG as a whole. I think not only as a category, but as like a movement, as a consumer trend movement, I think you're seeing so many people who are really paying attention to like what they're putting in their bodies, the labels, the ingredients, where it's coming from. People want transparency, and I think that starts with their food. I got to turn these notifications off on my email. It's driving me nuts, especially as I'm recording this. So Coefficient Capital, they raised two separate funds. So they raised $290 million for Fund 2 and $240 million for their Apex Fund, over $530 million in fresh capital aimed at consumer brands. Dang. Let's put that in context, because they've been around the block and they've made some good bets. So this is more capital than most CPG companies will ever generate in revenue. And it's sitting with a single firm whose portfolio includes Magic Spoon, Lemmy, Oatly, Gorgie, Trip, Sows, Sincerely Yours. Their big wins have included Oatly's IPO, Cape Farms, Num Nom, and Just Spices. So why this matters for founders? Coefficient Capital isn't writing small checks. This is growth equity capital, which means they're looking for brands who have already proven their product market fit and need fuel to scale. The portfolio thesis is clear. They're backing structural shifts in consumer behavior, not trends. Functional nutrition, premium beverages, clean beauty, better for you snacking. Every major behavioral shift of the last 5 years is represented. Over $530 million in dry powder. Coefficient Capital will be writing some of the most consequential checks in the next 3 to 5 years. If you're a founder looking at raising your Series A soon, you should get to know them. You know, I think the bigger question here is like, when one firm has that much capital, does it create an unfair advantage? And I think the answer here is yes. If you're competing against coefficient-backed brands, you need to understand that your competitor just got access to a lot of money, expertise, network that most brands can't match. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on them. Other things to note in the fundraising space, Second Slight, they raised $75 million last week. Great Circle, they're raising $20 million. Cutting Horse, they closed their $75 million round. So the capital just keeps flowing into consumer brands right now, and it's unprecedented. The exit data from the last 12 months, Poppy, Beatbox, Siete, Lesser Evil, is bringing institutional money back into the category at scale. Can we have segment news? If you saw the Bain insurgent brands report that came out about 2 weeks ago, there were some brands in there like Chomps, like Archer, that are killing it. The meat stick category as a whole is really growing. And I have to say, I'm a new believer. So I never really liked meat sticks. I guess it's just like the idea of just like, I guess they weren't good. I guess just like growing up, they were just like, ugh, not very tasty, too meaty, too chewy. Like, they're really good now, though. Like, they're really dialed. I got the new Primal Buffalo Chicken Sticks. Oh, they were incredible. And I've been having the Archer beef sticks, really good. So I really like them. Quick protein, I think 9 grams of protein. And it's not even that. It's like I'm not even having it for protein. It's just like it's a quick snack in the afternoon that's clean, that's healthy, that's good for me. So when I saw this, it's like, this makes a lot of sense. So 2 weeks ago, Bain told us that the insurgent brands drove 25% of all new food growth. So Good Warrior is going to be PepsiCo's meat stick brand. 10 grams of protein, 100 calories, 0 sugar, nationwide distribution. So let me be very clear about what just happened. The company that makes Doritos, Lay's, Cheetos, they looked at the meat stick category and they saw a white space, a category built by insurgent brands like Chomps, Archer, Epic, and said, we want a piece of this. And that's interesting. Usually, you'll see them try to acquire brands for areas that they can't innovate in. They're diving in head first. So I want to get my hands on them. I want to try them. Because honestly, in markets like this, where ultimately, if there's not too much variation in taste and flavor, price is going to win. So if PepsiCo can price themselves more competitively and it tastes pretty much the same as an Archer or a Chomps, they're going to do better. They're going to win over a consumer like even me, who I have a very sophisticated taste palette. And I like things that taste good. But I'm not like the frozen pizza section in the grocery store is such a good example for this, where, and I like, there are some amazing frozen pizza options. I keep trying new ones that I like, but I really have a tough time spending like $12, $14 on a pizza when I can get the private label for like $4 or $5 with not a whole lot of variance in like taste. The ingredients is where you're going to see the big thing. You know, the private label isn't going to have like your super clean everything, this and that, and protein, but it's going to be like almost $10 cheaper. And that's where, like, when you're getting groceries, like, that adds up. So I think in the meat stick category, PepsiCo will be a very big player if they can nail the taste, be neck and neck, and then compete on price. And I think that's where you see big CPG where they will be successful. The branding's really good. If you look at it, it's cool. It looks modern. It looks CPG, kind of, for the most part. So is it good? Brands are going to win on taste this year. You know, I think that's where you look at a lot of products that have every functional element under the sun, but they don't taste good. I'm not going to have it again if it doesn't taste good. You'd be amazed how many brands that I haven't bought for a second time because it didn't taste good. And you got to taste good. And so, I'm really sore. I do a workout class in my building on Tuesday nights that Lauren teaches. She's a Nike instructor. She does like cold plunge. It's awesome. It's really fun. So you want to come check it out? So the good news for insurgent brands, PepsiCo just validated the category as a whole. Every buyer conversation gets easier when PepsiCo is investing in the same macro trend. The bad news, your new competitor has unlimited shelf space, a sales force 10,000s deep, and a marketing budget that makes your total revenue look like a rounding error. The question every insurgent protein brand needs to answer right now, what's your moat? Because distribution isn't it anymore. PepsiCo just took that off the table. Your moat has to be brand trust, ingredient integrity, and cultural relevance that big food can't replicate. That's exactly what Bain's data showed. Big CPG acquires these brands from scratch. Big CPG acquires these brands because they can't replicate the cultural relevance from scratch. Good Warrior is PepsiCo trying to say, we're going to prove you wrong. So we'll see. We'll see if it works. I think it's going to work. I think they're going to be, if they, like I said, if they can compete on price, if they can compete on taste and they're competitive, and if they're going to win on price, they're going to do well. Rolling on a wing. All right, let's keep it going. So the next segment, we're going to talk about Hims and Hers. It feels like they've been in a lot of legal issues the last couple months, but this one with Novo Nordisk really was centered around selling Ozempic and Wegovy directly on their platform. This might be the most impressive strategic sequence I've seen in consumer health in years. So we'll walk through the timeline because it's a little complicated. So 2 weeks ago, Hims and Hers spent $1.5 billion acquiring Eucalyptus, the Australian telehealth company, which we talked about. The stock was getting hammered because GLP-1 fears were real. The Novo Nordisk lawsuit was hanging over them. Basically, every analyst was questioning the business model. So this week, they settled with Novo Nordisk, which will now allow them to offer branded Ozempic and Wegovy directly on their platform. The stock jumped 40% in one day. So the strategic sequence here: acquire international infrastructure, settle in the legal dispute, become a branded GLP-1 distributor, watch the stock recover. They went from being perceived as a GLP-1 victim to a GLP-1 distribution channel. The compounding and generic play was always the bridge. Branded Ozempic and Wegovy is the destination. This changes the landscape for telehealth companies significantly. So what does this mean for CPG brands positioning themselves around the GLP-1 consumer? Hims and Hers just became a new distribution channel that you probably haven't been thinking about. If you're making high protein, portion control, clean label products for GLP-1 users, the platform is now distributing Ozempic and Wegovy directly is where those consumers live. The lesson for founders: strategic patience and sequencing matter more than any single. Hims didn't panic when the stock dropped. They executed on a plan. As someone who doesn't drink anymore, when I hear about new NA brands launching, I'm always really excited because I want to taste it. I want to try it. I was super excited to see that George Clooney was launching an NA brand and then was quickly disappointed when there were no IPAs available. It's like, what are you doing? You're launching, like, I think it was like a lager and a Pilsner style. I'm like, come on. You're literally, people who like IPAs, like what I used to enjoy, double IPA, like that's kind of your, I want to say, like upper echelon of beer drinker. Those are the ones that are really particular on taste, who have a palate for it, can sense different notes, different flavors, different ingredients. And maybe that's not who they're targeting, but if you're NA, you're probably used to enjoy drinking. And if you're having a beer, you're probably used to enjoy beer. And so, I don't know, there are a lot of people who just are big beer drinkers, but have a very, very basic palate when it comes to beer. So I can understand this. So that's fine. We'll give them a little bit of a free pass. But George Clooney, Randall Gerber, and Mike Meldrum are back. So they're launching Crazy Mountain, a premium non-alc beer, 2 lager-style brews, D2C for now, and retail coming. So for those of you that don't know, these 3 sold Casamigos for over $1 billion to Diageo. So when they enter a new category, it deserves attention. When we look at the non-alc beer landscape, it's changing a lot. It's been growing a lot in the last couple of years. Athletic Brewing dominates in volume. Tom Holland's Bureau just raised at a reported $100 million valuation and is approaching $10 million in year 1 of sales at Target. Heineken 00 has distribution, but no cultural relevance. I have kind of shifted more towards liking Bureau. Obviously, I've loved Athletic. They've really been the best for as long as possible. That's usually what you're going to find at a restaurant, too. The Bureau has a really good IPA. So, as we were just saying, the more sophisticated beer drinkers or beer drinkers of the past or OGs, we like a little taste. Just give me a little taste. Just give me a little taste. Oh, I'm so excited for some March Madness. I'm going to visit one of my best friends, Bennett, in Chicago, and I'm going to get to meet his son and his sister's 2 daughters, and we're going to watch basketball all weekend and like have wings and stuff, and it's going to be great. And we're probably not going to move from the couch, and that's like the best possible time that I could ask for it with him. So super, super duper excited. The premium lane is getting crowded. This is a much more competitive entry point than Casamigos had in tequila. But the Casamigo playbook is proven. Best product, premium pricing, cultural relevance, and let distribution find you. U.S. beer shipments are down 5.9% in 2025, over 8 million fewer barrels. Traditional beer is contracting, and non-alc is growing in double digits. Clooney doesn't need the money. That's the thing. That's exactly why this is credible. They see white space, not a vanity project. The real question is, though, can the Casamigos formula work again in beer? I don't know. I guess we'll see. In a much more competitive category with Athletic, Bureau, Heineken, and a dozen others already in the ring, the answer probably depends on whether the product is genuinely best in class and good. They won the tequila race on Taste First, so I hope the beer is the same way. So a couple other stories that we'll touch on because we're just dragging this thing on. So Monster has entered the energy drink world with a female-targeted energy drink called FLRT. Kind of has flown under the radar. They're trying to get into that Celsius Alani Nu world, which has been exploding with their acquisition. And so they quietly launched FLRT at Hy-Vee in the Midwest, and with Walmart and GoPuff coming soon. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how this does, or if they end up canceling it, but we'll see. Once Upon a Farm, their public market reality check. So they posted a Q4 net sales up 34% to $64 million. The stock dropped as much as 20%. And that's kind of the rude awakening of being a public company, is the slightest best case 30% growth in a private boardroom. That's amazing. On Wall Street, it gets you a haircut. If guidance isn't good, the public market doesn't celebrate revenue growth without margin expansion. Private markets give you 5 years. Public markets give you 5 quarters. So the scrutiny is going to be relentless. Every miss gets amplified. Every metric gets compared to expectations, not just the last. So if you're a founder, you're earning the public markets, just know what you're signing up for. Rapid fire bump. Quick hits that deserve attention. Let's go. So the deals. Henkel acquired Not Your Mother's. They were doing $220 million in revenue. Hair care. So affordable hair care's exit moment. You don't need to be prestige. You just need velocity. Moranga and Haichu. We talked about this. They bought My Mochi. So the parent company, Moranga of Haichu, they bought My Mochi for an undisclosed amount, but we know they're doing $80 million in sales. Tilray, they scooped up Brewdog's assets. So Australian brewing facilities and pubs after UK assets sold for £33 million. Estee Lauder, they're completing their 18-year journey to fully acquire Forest Essentials in India. Brita took a minority stake in Hello Clean. Let's go through some of the funding news. So Hooray's Girl Beer, $5 million seed round. They're already at Walmart, Kroger, Albertsons, Whole Foods. Perfumer H, they raised $4.5 million from the ESOP co-founders. Novos Labs, they have backing from Unilever Ventures for longevity supplements. Good Girl Snacks, they got an undisclosed investment from Nucleus Network. I don't know who they are. Chili Ones, so the low ABV beer backed by Tyson Barrios. They, NHL player, they also got it back from Nutriel. So Living Things, they got an investment from Spadell. Let's rip through a couple launches. We got Surfside Creators launched Super Light, an RTD cocktail in 20 states. Jarritos went modern with Sana Sana prebiotic soda. Akans, they have a licensing era continues. Top Ramen collab sold at Walmart after spam. Nani's Chai, from a 12-year Coca-Cola corporate development veteran. Let Me Relax Soft Chews, Summer Friday debuts fragrance, and Sniff Times Michaela Nguyen. All right, let's bang through these distribution wins. So Grunes nationwide at Costco, that's a big one. Poppy at Starbucks, that's another really big one. Bum Energy nationwide at Walmart. Busy expanded to 1,300 doors at Target. Collie Puffs and Sky Pop nationwide at Target. Joyride at Publix, I always say it wrong. Fruit Riot at Tesco in the UK, and Celsius launched in Spain with Sunatori, right? And then Symbiotica at Ulta Beauty. So before we close, take a moment to lift up the founder of A Dozen Cousin who passed away last week. I eat this rice like almost every night for dinner. So Ibrahim Basir unexpectedly passed away. Super sad. I never met him, but I quite literally use his product almost every night for dinner, and he has an amazing product and story, and the outpouring of love from every corner of the community really tells his story. And so he built a brand rooted in cultural authenticity and representation at a time when the industry desperately needed both. He didn't just build a product, he built a platform for stories and flavors that the mainstream food industry had ignored for too long. The food industry just lost a good one. Food industry lost a good one. Rest in peace, Abraham. So my closing thoughts, here's the takeaway from this week. So the firepower, it's real. $500 million from Coefficient, PepsiCo entering a new market, Monster building female energy drinks, Henkel acquiring a hair care brand for $220 million, and George Clooney applying his learnings to non-alc beer. The window for emerging brands to build defensible positions before big food arrives is getting smaller every week. PepsiCo read the Bain insurgent report, and they launched their meat sticks. Monster watched Celsius acquire Lonnie New, and they launched FLRT. Incumbents aren't getting sleepy anymore. But here's what the Bain data also shows. Big CPG is acquiring insurgent brands because they can't replicate the cultural relevance that the smaller brands can. Good Warrior is PepsiCo trying to flip that model on its head. FLRT and Monster, same thing. History says they'll struggle. Your moat isn't distribution anymore. It's trust, authenticity. It's a daily habit you build. Consumer who chose you before anyone told them to. Build faster, build real. That's it. So good to get back in the routine. If you haven't yet left us a review, please rate us 5 stars and leave us a review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps with positioning. If you don't follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or subscribe to our Substack, make sure you hit the link in the bio. And if you've made it this far, holy shit, thank you. That means the world to me, and you must really love me. So I appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. We out.